Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of new items. So we have the new NARS Afterglow Tempting Palette, and we also have all 5 of the KJH brand Soft Smudge Lip and Cheek products. So this is Katie Jane Hughes brand, if you're unfamiliar with it. So let's go ahead and we're going to start off with the NARS palette. All right, so just some notes about packaging. We do have light pink packaging here. This is going to have a click closure. We have a full-size mirror, and this is plastic. This is what the palette looks like inside, and we have a variety of different finishes here. So let's go ahead. We're going to start off with swatches, and first we're starting off with this shimmery sparkle shade, and you can see that this is sort of like a warm ivory. Then our next shade here is going to be a little bit more firmly pressed in the pan. You can see that it is a stiffer formula, so I have to go back and forth a little bit more to pick up more of that pigment. And you can see that this one is kind of that warm brown, there's a little bit of orange in there, but there's also some silver shimmer in there to cool it off a little bit. Our third shade is a matte shade, and this is a rich terracotta brown. So think of like a terracotta pot, that's been aged a little bit. Then we have another matte shade, and this is going to be the purple shade in the palette. And you can see that this is going to be a lilac shade, which has a little bit of pink in the base. Then our middle shade here, this is a little bit more firmly pressed as well, but not as firmly pressed as the second shade. And you can see that this is a rosy mauve with a little bit of a lilac duochrome. Our sixth shade here is going to have a satin finish, and this is a rich brown, and it's pretty neutral. We have a little bit of warmth in it, but we also have a little bit of coolness in it. So when you build it up, you see a little bit more of those cooler notes. When you diffuse it out, you see a little bit more of the warmer base. Then our next shade is a satin shade, and this is a really pretty kind of it's like a deep plum. So we have a little bit of a reddish hue to it, but it's definitely going to be more of that purpley vibe. So it's more of like a purpley mauve. Then this next shade, this is going to be as firmly pressed as the middle shade here. So you can see this one here is going to be a warm rose. And this is a rich metallic shade here. And then our last shade in the palette is going to be a matte. And you can see that this one here is it's kind of like a chocolate mauve. So think of like a deep chocolate mixed with mauve. So this is the palette. Overall, I have to say it does skew warm. Let's take a look at the demos and details for this. This palette retails for $49 US. And I'm kind of kicking myself because I did pay full price for it. And with Singles Day, they are doing 20% off on their website. So it actually comes down to $39.20. So if you can get this on sale, I would definitely recommend doing that. We've got Black Friday coming up as well. We have 1.7 grams for each of the eyeshadows here. So 0.06 ounces for each shade. And we have 9 shades in the palette. It's made in Canada with a 1-year shelf life. Now, according to NARS, it says, discover a dreamscape of color inside a new palette with 9 striking eyeshadows. Feel the lavender haze all over your gaze with smooth mattes, high shine shimmers, and reflective glitters in orchid, rose, and tan notes that build and blend for ethereal eyes. Pure eyeshadow pigments deliver rich, high impact color in one stroke, while velvet soft texture applies effortlessly for an even layer of color that lasts. This is a limited edition palette. Overall, I would have to say that I think the quality on this palette is there. It's a nice palette, particularly if you can get this one on sale. It does skew warm. These are going to be kind of more, it kind of reminds me more of like the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk shades. I actually don't have any of those palettes, so I don't have those to compare, but that's kind of the color story that it's giving me. And we do have that cooler lilac purple in there that kind of cools things off a little bit. We've also got the warmer terracotta and so forth. So you can do a variety of different looks with this, and I love the different finishes. All of the shadows perform well on the eyes. I do want to note that the matte shades, they go on perfectly with a brush. But if you're using a fingertip application, there is a little bit of fallout with that. Even if it looks like you're dusting off any excess off of your finger, once you go and pat that on, I can just feel a little bit of it falling onto my cheek. So, you know, even if I can't see it, I can still feel it. So there is a little bit of fallout with the mattes, but I don't notice any fallout with the mattes if you're using a brush. And it's a very nice, even application. So for today's eye look, I actually paired this with the Victoria Beckham Orchid eyeliner, and I feel like that particular shade goes perfectly with this palette. Yes, I'd still like the Victoria Beckham liner to be a touch darker, but the actual tone and hue of it blends beautifully with this palette. So if you have the Victoria Beckham eyeliner in Orchid, that kind of gives you an idea of the vibe of the palette. They just have a very similar vibe overall. So let's take a look at a quick comparison. And I did want to compare the Dior Backstage palette in number 2, Smoky Essentials. You can see that the palettes are definitely going to be different. We've got more pops of color in the NARS, but some of the shades did kind of, you know, give me a similar vibe, just a little bit softer. So I'm going to put the Dior Backstage right here next to it. And you can see that these are going to be a little bit lighter and softer. They're more muted shades overall. But I just want to compare the color story as a whole. So you can see with the Dior, we have a few more neutral shades here. As I mentioned, everything is much more muted. We do have the same number of shades. These are going to be a slightly more powdery formula, and we don't have any really shimmery shades. But you can see it's kind of like a muted version overall. So similar vibe if you're looking for, you know, the same idea, but a more muted, dusty version. And that's what I get from the Dior. Another palette I kind of wanted to take a look at is the holiday palette from Givenchy this year. You can see that they do have differences. What hits your eye right away, at least for me, is the lilac shade here in the NARS and the blue in here. But if you kind of take those out of the equation, we do have some similar hues. So I'm going to put this one right down here at the bottom. And you can see the Givenchy, we do have some cooler tones in here. But I wanted to compare, you know, because we still have kind of this like terracotta mixed in here. We've got a light blue instead of the lilac. Of course, we have the deeper blue. And then we have some, you know, neutral browns and so forth as well. So that's the Givenchy Holiday. I would have to say that they're pretty different, but if you're looking for a cooler alternative, you know, this could be an option. So I hope those were helpful. Let's go ahead and move on to the KJH brand. All right, so Katie Jane Hughes has her own makeup line. If you haven't heard about it, she actually only has 2 products. So this is her second product that has come out. The first one was a highlighter, and I reviewed that when that launched like a year, almost 2 years ago. It's been a while. So I do really like that. So I was excited to try these. These are the Soft Smudge Lip and Cheek. They are meant to be a matte product. So we do have like plastic packaging here. It's pretty lightweight, you know, and we do have a click closure. So this is the product. And again, it's a soft smudge lip and cheek product. So it's meant to be used on the lips and the cheeks. And texturally, it kind of reminds me of the Violette FR Bisou Bombs. So there are some similarities with that. This is what it looks like smudged out. This first shade here is Soft Raisin. And you can see that this is kind of your reddish brown shade. So it's kind of like a soft sienna brown. Then we have Soft Coral. And this is going to be best for lighter skin tones. The raisin can be built up or, you know, really sheared out. But this coral kind of stays on the lighter side. And you can see it's really just a soft peachy coral. So for me, a true coral is like a 50-50 blend of the orange and the pink. This definitely has more peach. So I would definitely say it's more of a deeper peach. Then we have Soft Tomato, which is the red shade. I really like this shade a lot. It's a nice soft red. It's pretty neutral for a red blush, but it does lean slightly warm. So there is a little warmth to it, but it's definitely not a super warm red. This one here is Soft Pink. And you can see that this pink shade here, it's also a pretty neutral pink. There is a little warmth in here. This is also one that, you know, I say it skews on the lighter side, but it's neutral, leaning a little warm. And then my favorite is the soft berry, which on my cheeks right now, I actually have the berry with a little bit of the soft pink on the apples. And you can see that this berry is kind of like a true berry. It's going to be cooler in tone. Think of like, I guess this would be kind of like a soft plum berry. So, you know, I think it's a really beautiful shade. We have some cooler shades in here. It's not overly cool. One of the great things about these is they all stay relatively close to neutral on the spectrum with a few exceptions. And let's take a look at the demos and details. Now for the demos, I wanted to show you what it looks like on the cheek if you go in directly with the stick or if you put it on your fingertip first and then go in. And then for today's demo, I used a brush so you can kind of see, you know, the different application styles and how they perform. For me personally, my favorite application is the brush method. So that is what I will be going with. So the Soft Smudge Lip and Cheek retail for $24 US. There are 5 shades. You can purchase these individually, or they also have a trio, or you can purchase the entire collection. If you purchase the trio or all 5 shades, there is a discount when doing that. There are 8.5 grams of product in each of these. We have a 1-year shelf life, and these are made in Canada. And according to Katie Jane Hughes, she says, as a makeup artist and beauty consumer myself, I want products that work, that are playful, and that inspire people to get excited about makeup again. Meet Soft Smudge Lip and Cheek, a multi-use cream to powder stick that delivers a soft matte yet sheer wash of color. When applied to the cheeks, this buildable, long-wearing, and non-drying formula will blend into skin or melt into your complexion products. When applied to the lips, the unique soft texture will mimic the feel of your natural lip while giving you the perfect buildable color. The result? Lips and cheeks stay smooth, supple, and vibrant from morning to night. Now I have to say, I really like these on the cheeks. They do give you a little bit of a blurred look to your cheeks, which I find to be really helpful. They have a matte finish, and they do last, at least on me, they last all day. Now I have normal skin, so things last usually pretty well on me. So these, I think, are really nice on the cheeks. As for the lips, they feel like a sheer matte lip balm. And I like a light layer of this, but when I go in with too many layers, to me it just feels too powdery and dry. And with some of the shades, I can see a little bit more of like an opacity that kind of looks like there's a white base to it. So I feel like it can look a bit drying on the lips depending on the shade you're using and, you know, how you apply it. So personally, if you're using these on the lips, I think a lighter, softer layer of this is best. And honestly, if I were to use this on the lips on a regular basis, I'd probably top it with something. Not because, you know, I actually like the matte lip look a lot, but I do find it just a little dry on the lips. So I would probably pair it with a balm myself. Now on the lips, they do dry down, so you don't really feel any texture or anything like that. It's smooth feeling, but it also feels kind of like I powdered my lips. So that's the texture I'm getting from it. Now I want to clarify that it doesn't look or feel dry on my lips. My lips don't feel uncomfortable at all in any way, but I do think some of the shades look dry and kind of emphasize the dryness of my lips. So that's, you know, my thought on those. For me personally, I'll be using these for cheek products. And as I mentioned earlier, when using these on the lips, they kind of remind me a little bit of the Viola FR Bisou Bombs, which I personally love, but those are a little bit more hydrating and they have a bit more glide to them. They are a lip product, so they're fully intended for that purpose. These kind of seem like a cheek version of that you can also use on lips, but to me, they seem like they're best as a cheek product. So let's take a quick look at some of the Viola FR Bisou blushes, which are kind of a similar product. And this one here is called Inez, and this one is going to be closest to the soft coral, but it's more of a mix of the soft coral and the soft pink together. So it's going to be a little bit pinker. These have a little bit more glide to them, and I feel like they are not as matte looking on the skin. They are still a matte finish, but they have just a little bit more vibrancy to them. Melanie is the most recent shade, and this is more of a true coral shade. And you can see we've got some pink in there as well. You can see that the Inez has a little bit more pink in it than the Melanie does. And then we have Louise, which is your nude shade here. This is kind of just like a nice everyday light nude shade. But you can see when I'm sharing these out that this really, the KJH really are more cream to powder, whereas this is really more of a matte cream. And I think that's the biggest difference, is these don't necessarily have a powder finish to them where the KJH do. And then our last shade here is Aisa, which is the berry shade. And you can see that this berry has a bit more red in it, and the KJH is going to be a little bit bluer in tone. So it's a little bit dustier and bluer. And yeah, I think both products are great. They do have a similar effect on the skin, but the difference to me is that these really stay as a matte cream, whereas the KJH dry to a powder finish. They like fully set. You don't feel any texture whatsoever. Now I have to say with the VLFR, I don't feel any texture once I blend that out on my skin either, but it has a bit more of that dewier radiance to it. Still matte looking, but just because it is more of a cream product. I also wanted to take a quick look at a few of the Bisou Balms. These are the lip products, and just kind of see how some of the shades compare. So this is the shade Guimauve, which is, we'll put these up here. So you can see these are also going to be kind of matte, but they do have a little bit more glide to them. This is Guimauve, which is kind of a peach. It's in between the soft tomato and the soft coral. And I think that's a really beautiful shade. We also have Batiste, which I'm going to put this one down here closer to the berry shade, because this is going to be closer to that, but it's going to be a warmer version. There is another berry shade called Sucette, but it's much cooler and pretty different. So we have the newest shade, Bonbon Coquelicot, which is a warmer red. There is a cool tone red as well called Amour Fou, which is one of my personal favorites, but it's pretty different from the shades here. So then the last one that was kind of close is Calisson, which is going to be a soft nude. So these are technically a lip product, but I know a lot of people do also use these on the cheeks. So hopefully some of those color comparisons can kind of help out. Overall, I hope this has been helpful and has given you an idea of what the formulas are going to be like and the performance for these products, so you can really get an idea before you purchase. The NARS palette, again, you know, it's on sale for Singles Day, and unfortunately, I wish I'd waited for that. But if you can get it on sale, you know, thinking like Black Friday and so forth, I think that is totally worth it. This is a really nice kind of warm, it's like warm mauves basically. And I think if you are looking for something like that, I think this is a nice palette. And if you can get this for 40 bucks, I think that's a great deal. The KJH brand, I really like these on the cheeks. That's going to be my favorite way to wear them. They can definitely be used on the lips, and I think it's great to have that multitasking product. I do really like the berry one on the lips, but personally for me, these are going to be a cheek product. I love the blurred effect you get with this. I love how they perform and go on, and they really dry to that powder finish and set and last all day. So we've got some great products here. I'd love to know what you think if you've tried any of these. Please share down below in the comments, and thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.